Everyone thought Caitlin Clark's biggest battle would be proving she belongs in the WNBA, but the real war started the moment she stepped into it, because while legends applauded her, resistance inside the league told a much darker story. From the outside, her rise looks unstoppable. Record-breaking college career, sold-out arenas, TV ratings exploding overnight, NBA legends praising her openly, and fans who never watched a WNBA game suddenly tuning in just to see her play. But inside the league, behind closed doors, that attention created a pressure cooker that no rookie has ever had to walk into before. Caitlin Clark's popularity didn't grow gradually, it arrived like a tidal wave, and that kind of spotlight changes the room the moment you walk into it. Stephen Curry was one of the first NBA superstars to openly say what many were already thinking, pointing out that Clark's shooting range, confidence, and willingness to take impossible shots weren't just impressive, they were transformative. He didn't just praise her highlights, he emphasized her vision, her ability to control tempo, and the way she bends defensive schemes simply by stepping over half court. For Curry, Clark wasn't copying anyone, she was forcing the game to adjust to her presence. LeBron James echoed that same sentiment, but he took it further. He didn't just celebrate her talent, he warned people about what happens when resentment starts replacing appreciation. LeBron spoke from experience, from knowing exactly what it feels like to be young, hyped, heavily criticized, and blamed for things far bigger than basketball. He pointed out that when a player brings attention, money, and visibility, the correct response should be protection and leadership, not hostility and resistance. And that's where the story starts to shift, because while the NBA world largely embraced Caitlin Clark as a generational talent, the WNBA response felt far more complicated. Praise existed, yes, but so did visible tension. Hard fouls became a weekly talking point. Physical play crossed into questionable territory. Online narratives shifted from basketball analysis to personality attacks. Suddenly, every reaction, every facial expression, every post-game comment was dissected as if she were a 10-year veteran instead of a rookie adjusting to professional life. Hold on, because this is where things get uncomfortable. Clark didn't ask to become the face of the league. She didn't demand endorsements. She didn't control TV schedules. She didn't choose which games got promoted. But once the league realized she was driving numbers, selling tickets, and bringing in audiences that hadn't existed before, expectations shifted instantly, and so did resentment. Some players welcomed the moment, others clearly didn't. The conversation quietly changed from how good is Caitlin Clark to why is Caitlin Clark getting this attention? And that difference matters more than people admit. Magic Johnson stepped into the conversation with a perspective shaped by history. He reminded everyone that popularity does not automatically equal greatness, but he also emphasized something else that often gets ignored, which is that rivalries and stars are what push leagues forward. Magic didn't dismiss Clark, he contextualized her, comparing her moment to the early years of his rivalry with Larry Bird, when attention exploded and discomfort followed right behind it. But even Magic's measured tone couldn't stop the growing divide. Larry Bird eventually broke his silence, and when he did, his message wasn't flashy or emotional, it was firm and grounded in experience. Bird acknowledged the noise, the criticism, and the resentment, but he dismissed it all as temporary. He emphasized that greatness is never comfortable for the people watching it happen, especially when it arrives faster than expected. His advice wasn't about marketing or image, it was about survival, about keeping focus when outside voices grow louder than the game itself. And yet, the noise didn't stop. Rick Barry took a much sharper stance, openly calling out what he believed was jealousy disguised as toughness. He didn't mince words. He argued that Clark's presence was lifting the entire league financially and culturally, and that targeting her physically or emotionally was not competition, it was insecurity. His comments sparked outrage in some circles and agreement in others, but they did something important. They forced people to admit the tension existed. Then Shaquille O'Neal added fuel to the fire. Shaq, speaking candidly, acknowledged that even he had doubted Clark early on, until she kept proving him wrong, shot after shot, moment after moment. He framed her dominance not as hype, but as inevitability, and he challenged critics to ask themselves why excellence makes people uncomfortable. His comments weren't subtle, and they weren't gentle, but they resonated because they came from someone who understood what it means to change the gravity of a sport. But guess what? Not everyone agreed. Reggie Miller pushed back against the idea that Clark was being treated unfairly, arguing that professional leagues are not designed to be welcoming, especially to rookies who arrive with massive attention. His stance was old school, emphasizing toughness, resilience, and earning respect through contact. For some fans, it sounded reasonable. For others, it felt dismissive of the unique pressure Clark was under. pressure no previous rookie had carried into the WNBA. Charles Barkley didn't hold back at all. Barkley bluntly accused parts of the league of pettiness, calling out what he saw as unnecessary hostility toward a player who was actively increasing visibility, revenue, and relevance. His remarks sparked massive debate, but they also highlighted something critical, which is that Clark wasn't just being guarded on the court, she was being guarded emotionally, politically, and culturally. And then came the moment no one expected. Michael Jordan, rarely vocal about modern players, stepped into the conversation with a warning that landed like a thunderclap. Jordan emphasized Clark's competitive instinct, her refusal to back down, and her willingness to take responsibility in high-pressure moments. He made it clear that players like her don't come along often, and that leagues that fail to protect their stars risk damaging their own future. That wasn't praise, that was a caution, because Jordan understood something that goes beyond basketball, which is that when a league allows internal conflict to overshadow growth, everyone loses. Caitlin Clark's toughest fight isn't about shooting accuracy or defensive adjustments. It's about navigating a space where admiration and resentment exist side by side, where her success highlights long-standing frustrations, and where her presence forces uncomfortable conversations about visibility, money, and hierarchy. She is playing basketball, yes, but she is also carrying expectations she never volunteered for. Every game she plays becomes a referendum. Every mistake becomes magnified. Every success becomes politicized. And yet, through it all, she keeps showing up, keeps taking the shots, keeps making the passes, and keeps absorbing contact without theatrics or complaint. That restraint might be her most underrated skill, because the truth is, Caitlin Clark doesn't need to fight anyone publicly. The league is already changing around her, whether it wants to admit it or not. Attendance numbers don't lie. Broadcast ratings don't lie. The attention she brings isn't theoretical, it's measurable. And that's exactly why the resistance feels so intense. Change always threatens existing structures, and Clark represents change at a scale the WNBA has never experienced before. She isn't replacing anyone, but she is reshaping the conversation, and not everyone is ready for that. So when people ask whether Caitlin Clark can survive the physicality of the WNBA, they're asking the wrong question. The real question is whether the league can adapt to the reality she represents without tearing itself apart internally. Because this isn't just about one player anymore. It's about whether growth will be embraced or resisted, whether stars will be supported or isolated, and whether a moment of opportunity will be expanded or squandered. And if history tells us anything, it's that players who endure this kind of pressure either fade quietly or redefine everything. Caitlin Clark doesn't look like she's fading. The toughest fight Caitlin Clark faces isn't against defenders, critics, or rivals. It's against expectations that were never fair to begin with. And if she survives this moment, the WNBA may never look the same again.